a billionaire CEO who scorned a single father security guard until the night the elevator caught fire. Black smoke swallowed the corridor, alarms silenced into nothing. Henry broke the safety lock, wedged the door, carried Alexandra through a flooded basement. In the darkness, he saw the maintenance logs had been erased, the mark of an invisible hand. From that moment, power shifted. Alexandra owed him her life, and he became the target. Someone was hunting her, and someone else truly held the building's switches. The glass tower rose 43 stories above the financial district, its steel and sapphire facade catching the last rays of autumn sun like a blade. Inside, Alexandra moved through the lobby with the precision of someone who owned not just the building but the very air within it, the rhythm of footsteps, the temperature of ambition. At 34, she had built a technology empire from code and calculated risk, transforming a college dorm idea into a corporation valued at $3 billion. 3 weeks remained until the initial public offering that would cement her fortune and vindicate every sacrifice, every relationship burned, every hour stolen from sleep. Her heels clicked against imported Italian marble, each step a declaration. She wore Armani, steel gray with angular lines. Her dark hair was pulled back so tightly it looked like armor. People moved out of her way without being asked. That was how power worked, not through commands but through presence. Through the certainty that you belonged at the top and everyone else existed in gradients of lesser altitude. She passed the security desk, barely glancing at the man behind it. Just another fixture, another cog in the machine that served her vision. Henry sat at that desk, shoulders broad beneath his navy uniform, a quiet presence most people never truly saw. He had learned over 38 years and 3 years in this job that invisibility was a kind of superpower. It meant people acted naturally around you. It meant you saw things. At 6'2", with the build of someone who had once carried people out of burning buildings, he should have commanded attention. Instead, he had cultivated the art of being overlooked. Tonight, his 8-year-old son Leo occupied the chair beside him, homework spread across the counter like a tiny invasion of normal life into the sterile corporate world. The boy's pencil scratched softly as he worked through a multiplication problem, his dark hair falling across his forehead. The daycare had closed early due to a pipe burst, which meant Leo came to work. No choice, no apology, just the mathematics of survival when you earned $43,000 a year in a city where ambition wore tailored suits and never, ever showed vulnerability. Alexandra stopped, her gaze sharp. "Is that a child?" Henry stood slowly. "Yes, ma'am. Daycare closed early. It won't happen again." "It's unprofessional." Her voice carried the edge of someone unaccustomed to explanations. "This is a place of business, not a playground." Leo looked up, his eyes wide but not afraid. Henry placed a hand on his son's shoulder, a gentle pressure that meant be still. "I understand. I'll make other arrangements." Alexandra's mouth opened as if to say more, then closed. She turned toward the elevator bank, dismissing them both from her attention. As the doors slid shut, Henry watched the numbers climb. 42, 43, executive floor. He returned to his seat and Leo whispered, "Why was she mad?" "She's busy," Henry said quietly. Some people forget what matters when they're too busy controlling everything else. What Henry did not say, what he barely let himself remember, was that he had once been a firefighter. 5 years ago, he had stood in a burning warehouse while a commander radioed conflicting orders, and his partner had died waiting for permission to move. Henry had walked away from the badge that day, but he had made himself a promise. He would never let anyone die because of bureaucracy again. Leo bent back over his homework. Henry's eyes drifted to the control panel behind the desk, to the emergency fire alarm button with its red cover. The building's fire suppression system was supposed to be state-of-the-art. Supposed to be. Last week, he had noticed a loose latch on one of the extinguishers. Small things, easy to overlook. His fingers drummed once against the desk, then stilled. On the 43rd floor, Alexandra strode into the glass-walled conference room where her Chief Operating Officer Clinton and Chief Financial Officer George waited. Clinton was 42, silver at his temples, his smile practiced and empty. George, at 50, wore caution like armor. "The IPO roadshow starts in 3 weeks," Alexandra said, not bothering to sit. "I need both of you to sign off on the cost reduction package tonight." George shifted in his chair. The safety audit came back with concerns. "If we cut maintenance contracts now, the audit is conservative." Alexandra cut him off. "We're not cutting safety, we're cutting redundancy. There's a difference." "Is there?" George's voice was soft, but it carried weight. Clinton leaned forward, his expression sympathetic, a mask Henry would have recognized had he been in the room. Alexandra's right. We need to show fiscal discipline. The market rewards efficiency. George glanced between them, then nodded slowly, reluctantly. He reached for his pen. As he signed, Clinton's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his thumb moving quickly. A message sent. No one noticed. Later, after Alexandra and George had left, Clinton stood alone in the empty conference room. Through the glass, the city glittered like scattered diamonds. He made another call, his voice low. Tonight, during the inspection window, 20 floors below, Carter, the head of security, sat in his office reviewing the day's logs. At 45, Carter still carried himself like the firefighter he had once been, the same firehouse where Henry had served. He frowned at his screen. The fire control system showed 3 entries logged as maintenance adjustments. But when he cross-referenced the contractor's schedule, those times showed as inactive. Someone had edited the logs. He picked up his phone, started to dial Alexandra's direct line, then hesitated. It was after 9. She hated interruptions. He would catch her first thing in the morning. He made a note in his personal file, attached a screenshot, and logged out. As he stood to leave, his computer screen flashed a notification. System access temporarily suspended for security review. Carter stared at it. Security review? He was security. He tried to log back in. Access denied. His jaw tightened. In the small break room adjacent to the security desk, Henry heated soup for Leo while his son drew pictures of fire trucks on scrap paper. The building hummed with the low sound of ventilation and distant elevators. Henry had worked this shift for 3 years. He knew every sound, every rhythm. Tonight, something felt off, nothing he could name. Just a tension in the air, like the moment before a storm. At 11:42, Alexandra stepped into elevator 3, alone. She had stayed late reviewing presentations, perfecting slides that already shone with precision. Each word weighted, each graph calibrated to inspire confidence without promising miracles. The Investor Roadshow would begin in 18 days. Everything had to be perfect. Control was everything. Control of narrative, control of outcomes, control of perception. She had learned this lesson early, watching her father lose his hardware store to a competitor who understood branding better than inventory. Never again would she be at the mercy of forces she had not anticipated. She pressed the button for the parking garage, level -2, where her Mercedes waited in its reserved spot. The doors closed with a pneumatic whisper. The elevator descended smoothly, that familiar sensation of gravity shifting. 40, 39, 38. The building's elevators were German-engineered, serviced monthly, redundant safety systems stacked like insurance policies. Nothing ever went wrong. Between floors 13 and 12, it stopped. The lights flickered once, twice, then dimmed to emergency backup, a sickly yellow glow that made the mirrored walls look like tarnished brass. Alexandra pressed the button for the garage again. Nothing happened. She tried the lobby. The doors remained sealed, indifferent to her commands. The emergency phone on the panel should have connected automatically to security. She lifted the receiver. Dead silence. No dial tone. No click of connection. Just the hollow sound of her own breathing reflected back. She pulled out her phone. No signal. One bar flickered, died, returned, died again. The elevator car was a Faraday cage at the best of times, but there should have been emergency relay, a dedicated frequency that punched through metal and concrete. She had approved that system herself, signed off on the upgrade 2 years ago. She pressed the red alarm button. No sound came. Not a whisper, not a click. The silence was absolute and wrong, the kind of silence that meant something had been deliberately broken. Then, faintly, she smelled it. Smoke. Not the acrid bite of burning plastic or the clean char of paper, but something heavier, oilier. It crept through the ventilation slats like a living thing, thin wisps at first, then thickening into gray curtains that coiled against the ceiling. The temperature rose. Alexandra's breath quickened. She pounded on the doors with both fists, her voice rising despite herself. "Hello? Someone? I'm trapped." The sound disappeared into metal, swallowed by insulated steel. She pounded again, harder, feeling the sting in her palms. "Hello?" Nothing. Just the thickening smoke and the rising heat and the terrible understanding that she was alone, truly alone, for perhaps the first time in her life. At the security desk, Henry's radio crackled with static, an angry wasp sound that made Leo look up from his homework. Henry frowned, adjusted the frequency dial. Nothing. The building's internal communication system should be crystal clear, digital, redundant, tested weekly. He tapped the radio against his palm, the old trick that never actually worked. Still nothing. He glanced at the elevator status board mounted above the desk. 3 elevators showed in motion, their indicators tracking floors in real time. One was stationary, elevator 3. Between floors 12 and 13, the timer beside it read 90 seconds. Then 100, 120. Elevators did not stop for 2 minutes unless someone had pressed the emergency stop, and that triggered an automatic alarm to security. No alarm had sounded. Henry reached for the emergency protocol phone, a landline hardwired to bypass all digital systems. He lifted the receiver. Dead. Completely dead. Not even static. His pulse quickened, that old familiar sensation from another life, the prickling awareness that something was catastrophically wrong. He looked at Leo. Stay here. Don't move. Dad? Leo's voice was small. Stay here. Henry was already moving, his stride quickening into a run. His boots hit the floor with purpose as he crossed the lobby, pushed through the stairwell door. The stairs were concrete and steel, utilitarian, the bones of the building stripped of all pretense. He took them 3 at a time, his breath coming hard but controlled. 5 years since he had done this kind of climbing under stress, but the body remembered. 12 floors. His quadriceps burned, his lungs worked like bellows. The building code was clear, drilled into him during his 3 years here. No one opened elevator doors from the outside without authorization from Central Command. Protocol demanded he call fire services, wait for professionals, follow the chain of command. There were liability issues, union rules, insurance regulations. A security guard who breached protocol could be fired, sued, possibly charged with reckless endangerment if something went wrong. But the phones were dead. And he knew, with the certainty born of watching a man die while radios argued about jurisdiction, that whoever was in elevator 3 had perhaps 3 minutes before smoke inhalation became irreversible. Maybe less. The 12th floor hallway stretched empty and silent. The smell of smoke was stronger here, seeping from beneath the electrical room door adjacent to the elevator shaft. Henry tried the electrical room door. Locked, as it should be. Only maintenance had keys. But the elevator access panel was not locked. It was never locked. Fire code required accessible emergency release. He pulled the panel open, revealing the dark shaft beyond and the stalled car 1 floor above. The cables hung motionless, no vibration, no movement, dead weight. Alexandra. His voice echoed up the shaft, bouncing off concrete and steel. For a moment, nothing. Then, faint as a ghost, coughing. Someone was alive in there. Alive, but not for long. Henry ran back to the stairwell, grabbed the emergency kit mounted on the wall. Inside, a mechanical wedge made of hardened steel, a length of safety rope rated to 800 pounds, a flashlight, a compact first aid kit. Tools he had checked monthly for 3 years and never used. He returned to the shaft, secured the rope to the structural beam that supported the elevator track, tested it twice with his full weight, then lowered himself hand over hand until he was level with the elevator's roof hatch. The wedge went into the door seam where the 2 panels met. It was designed for this exact purpose, forcing elevator doors in emergencies. Henry set the wedge, positioned the lever, and threw his weight against it. Metal groaned, resisting. He adjusted the angle, tried again. The door cracked open 6 inches, 8, a foot. Black smoke billowed out, thick and choking. Inside, Alexandra had collapsed against the wall, her eyes half closed, hand pressed against her mouth. Henry pushed the wedge deeper, forced the door wider, and climbed through. He pulled off his jacket, wrapped it around her face, and half-carried, half-dragged her to the opening. The smoke was thicker now, burning his throat. He got her through, onto the landing, down 3 flights to the 10th floor where the air was clearer. She gasped, coughing violently. He knelt beside her, checked her pulse, her pupils. Steady, focused. She would be okay. After a moment, her eyes found his face. You. Her voice was raw. You broke protocol. Yes, ma'am. You could have been fired. Sued. Yes, ma'am. She stared at him, and something shifted in her expression, a crack in the armor. Thank you. Henry nodded. Can you walk? We need to get you checked out. I'm fine. She pushed herself up, wavering slightly. Henry caught her elbow. She didn't pull away. They made their way down to the ground floor, where Leo waited, wide-eyed. The boy ran to his father, and Henry caught him up in one arm, still steadying Alexandra with the other. Carter appeared from the security office, his face tight with concern. What happened? Elevator 3. Fire in the electrical room. Alarms didn't trigger. Henry's voice was flat, professional. Carter's jaw worked. I saw something in the logs. They locked me out an hour ago. Alexandra's head snapped up, the fog clearing from her eyes. Who locked you out? I don't know. System admin access. Show me. Her voice had regained its edge, but something underneath had changed. She glanced at Henry. And you. Don't leave. They crowded into Carter's office. The screen still showed the access denied message. Alexandra pulled out her phone, dialed her IT director. After a terse conversation, she hung up. He'll be here in 20 minutes. She turned to Henry. Walk me through what you found. Henry described the dead phone lines, the silent alarm, the locked electrical room. As he spoke, Alexandra's face grew paler. Someone did this deliberately. Yes, ma'am. Who has admin access to building systems? Carter pulled up a list. 5 names. One of them was Clinton. The silence stretched. Leo shifted against his father's side, sensing the tension. Finally, Alexandra spoke, her voice quieter than anyone had ever heard it. I need to see the logs, all of them. And I need a place to think where I know I'm safe. Henry hesitated. My apartment is 10 minutes away. She met his eyes. Then let's go. Henry's apartment was small, a 2-bedroom on the 4th floor of a walk-up in a neighborhood that had not yet been touched by gentrification. The furniture was old but clean, a sofa with sagging cushions, a scarred coffee table, bookshelves made from cinder blocks and planks. The walls were covered with Leo's drawings, fire trucks, and rockets and dinosaurs. A few photographs showed Henry and Leo at various ages. No other adult appeared in any of them. Alexandra stood in the center of the living room, looking lost. She had never been in a space like this, not cramped, exactly, but human-sized, real. Her own penthouse was 3,000 square feet of minimalist perfection. Here, the couch existed because people needed to sit. Simple math, no subtext. Leo brought her a glass of water without being asked, his small hands careful. The glass was plastic, decorated with faded cartoon characters. Are you okay? Alexandra took the glass. Her hands were still shaking slightly. Yes, thank you. She managed a smile. What's your name? Leo. That's a good name. It means lion. I know. My dad says I have to be brave like a lion. The boy looked at her with the directness of children who had not yet learned to hide their curiosity. You're really rich, aren't you? Leo. Henry's voice came from the kitchen where he was filling a kettle. It's okay, Alexandra said. She lowered herself onto the couch. Yes, I suppose I am. Do you like it? The question was so unexpected that Alexandra found herself actually considering it. Did she like being rich? She had never thought of it in those terms. Wealth was a tool, a measure of success, a shield against vulnerability. I like not being poor, she said finally. I like not having to worry about money, but I don't think about it the way you're asking. My dad says rich people forget how to be happy because they're too busy counting. Henry appeared with a mug of tea. That's not quite what I said. Close enough. Leo grinned. Alexandra accepted the mug, ceramic, chipped, with a logo from some half-marathon. The tea was too hot and too sweet, but she drank it anyway. You raised him well, she said quietly. I'm raising him honestly. Henry sat across from her. We need to figure out who did this and why. Clinton. The name tasted like ash. He's been pushing hard for the cost cuts. Harder than made sense. If the company's value drops before the IPO, the board might vote to sell outright. He could orchestrate a buyout through a proxy fund. Buy low, restructure, sell high. How much would he make? Conservatively, 200 million, maybe more. Alexandra's voice was flat. He tried to kill me for money. Not for money, Henry corrected gently. For the idea of money, for what he thought he deserved. There's a difference. Is there? Yeah. One you can maybe understand, the other's just evil. Carter arrived 20 minutes later with a laptop and a hard drive. I pulled what I could before they locked me out completely, but there's something else. He opened a file. The maintenance contractors who came through last week? Not on our approved vendor list. The work order was signed by Clinton. Alexandra's hands clenched. What did they do? Modified the alarm system. I think they set it to silent mode in specific zones, and they had access to the log servers. Carter's face was grim. There's a backup server offsite. Routines sync every 6 hours. If they erased the internal logs but didn't know about the offsite backup, We have evidence. Alexandra stood. We need a lawyer. Now. Henry's phone buzzed. A text from the building's assistant manager. Effective immediately, Henry suspended pending investigation into unauthorized access to elevator systems. He showed it to Alexandra. Her face went white with rage. Clinton's making you the scapegoat. Yeah, I won't let that happen. With respect, ma'am, you might not have a choice. He's controlling the narrative. Then we change it. Alexandra's voice was steel. I'm calling Astrid. She's the best M&A attorney in the city. If anyone can build an airtight case, it's her. By dawn, Astrid had arrived, a woman of 40 with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. She listened to everything, took notes, and then delivered her verdict. This is attempted manslaughter at minimum. Corporate sabotage, fraud. But if you go internal, he'll bury you in procedure. You need 2 tracks, legal evidence through proper channels and public transparency. Public, Alexandra's instinct recoiled. You built your company on control and opacity. That's what he's counting on. He thinks you'll try to handle this quietly, protect the IPO, surprise him, go loud. But only after we have ironclad proof. Alexandra looked at Henry. He was sitting on the floor with Leo, helping the boy with a science project. A smoke detector made from scavenged parts. Simple, brilliant. Henry glanced up, met her eyes, and nodded. Okay, Alexandra said. We go loud. The off-site data center was in an industrial park 30 miles outside the city. They drove there in Alexandra's car. Carter, Henry, and Alexandra at 9 in the morning. The facility required 2-factor authentication. Carter called in a favor with a former colleague who verified their credentials. The technician on duty, a young woman named Sophia, pulled up the backup logs. See here? Sophia pointed at the screen. Internal logs show maintenance at 2100 hours. But the Delta sync from off-site shows someone disabled the local alarms at 2245, right before your elevator stopped, and the admin access code. She highlighted a string of characters. That's not IT. That's executive level. Can you prove it's Clinton? Henry leaned closer. I can prove it's his access token. What he does with that information is up to you. They left with a sealed hard drive and a notarized access log. In the car, Alexandra made a call. Vivian, I need you to set up a board meeting. Today, 4 o'clock. Emergency session. Vivian, her head of public relations, hesitated. Clinton already called one. He's presenting a motion to suspend operations pending a safety review. Perfect. I'll be there. Alexandra hung up. She looked at Carter. Can you get Henry back his access? Temporarily, if I override through the backup system. Do it. We're going to need him. At Henry's apartment, Leo was refining his smoke detector with help from a neighbor. The device was crude but functional, using a photoelectric sensor and a temperature gauge to distinguish between electrical fires and oil-based combustion. Leo had been working on it for a school project, but now it had taken on new urgency. Dad, look. Leo showed him the readout. If there's oil in the smoke, the particulate size is different. You can tell it's not an accident. Henry stared at his son, pride swelling in his chest. Can you bring this to the office? We might need it. Really? Leo's eyes went wide. Really? At 4 o'clock, the board convened in the glass conference room. 9 members, plus Clinton, George, Alexandra, and Vivian. Security Carter stood by the door. Clinton opened with a presentation. Images of the damaged electrical room, maintenance logs showing gaps, a timeline that pointed to systemic neglect. He moved for an independent review and a temporary suspension of all operations pending resolution. This tragedy was narrowly avoided, Clinton said smoothly. But we cannot risk our employees, our investors, or our reputation on a system that has clearly failed. George nodded slowly. 2 other board members murmured agreement. Alexandra stood. Before you vote, I'd like to add some context. She connected her laptop to the display. The screen filled with the off-site Delta log, timestamps highlighted. This shows that the alarm system was deliberately disabled by someone with executive access. Clinton's smile did not waver. That could be a malfunction. Digital artifacts. Could be. Alexandra advanced the slide. Except, we also have this. A photograph of the contractor sign-in sheet, names that did not match any approved vendor list. And this, the work order, Clinton's signature clear at the bottom. The room went silent. Clinton's face remained calm, but a muscle in his jaw twitched. I authorized a routine inspection. Nothing more. Did you authorize them to modify the alarm system? Alexandra's voice was cold. I have no idea what they did. If there was negligence, we'll investigate. We already have. Alexandra nodded to Carter. He pressed a button. The fire alarm triggered, a brief test pulse that activated the display system. On the screen, camera footage appeared. The contractors accessing the server room, opening panels, inserting drives, and there, standing in the doorway, watching, Clinton. One board member gasped. George leaned forward, his face gray. Clinton stood. This is fabricated. It's time-stamped and hash-verified, Carter said flatly. You want to argue with cryptography? Clinton's mask cracked. You don't understand what you're interfering with. This company was going to destroy itself with Alexandra's arrogance. I was offering a way to save it, restructure it properly. By killing me? Alexandra's voice cut like a blade. By forcing a reality check. You were never supposed to be in that elevator at that hour. Clinton's eyes flicked to the door, calculating. This is corporate hardball. None of you have the stomach for it. Carter moved to block the exit. Clinton reached for something in his jacket. Henry was faster, stepping between him and Alexandra. Don't. Clinton pulled out a phone. One button, and your personal files go to every journalist in the city. Financial records, emails, you'll be destroyed. Alexandra met his gaze. Do it. I'm done hiding. Clinton's finger hovered. Then Carter was there, his hand closing over Clinton's wrist. You're done. But Clinton twisted away, bolting for the emergency exit that led to the roof. Carter and Henry followed, footsteps echoing in the stairwell. Up 2 flights to the roof door. Clinton hit it hard, and suddenly they were in open air. The rooftop was industrial machinery, air conditioning units, satellite dishes, ventilation stacks. Wind whipped across the space, 43 stories up, carrying the smell of rain. The city stretched out in all directions, a million lights against gathering darkness. Clinton had Alexandra in his grip, one arm around her throat, the other holding a maintenance knife 4 inches of steel with a hooked tip. He pressed it against her ribs, not breaking skin but promising. Stay back, Clinton shouted, his voice stripped of polish. Wind whipped Alexandra's hair across her face. She stood rigid, feeling the knife point. Below, sirens wailed. A news helicopter circled, its spotlight sweeping the rooftop. A camera recording this, her life ending on live television. The thought was absurd and hysterical. Henry raised his hands, his voice calm. Clinton, there's no exit here. We have the evidence. The off-site logs, the contractor records, the security footage. It's over. It's over when I say it is. Clinton's voice cracked. I built this company as much as she did. I worked 80-hour weeks. I made the deals she was too proud to touch. I deserved a piece of what I created. So you tried to kill her. Henry took a step forward. He was thinking, calculating. The knife was in Clinton's right hand, his grip on Alexandra with his left. I tried to create a correction, a market adjustment. She was supposed to be in meetings. The elevator should have been empty. Clinton's arm tightened. Do you know what it's like? To be essential but overlooked? To make the machine run while someone else takes credit? So you thought you'd buy the company cheap after tanking its value. Henry was closer now, just 10 feet away. Smart plan, except you didn't account for the off-site backup logs. And you didn't account for Leo. Leo? My 8-year-old son. The one Alexandra mocked for being in the building. He built a smoke detector that can tell the difference between electrical fires and oil combustion. An 8-year-old kid beat your $200 million plan. Clinton's face contorted with rage. He yanked Alexandra toward the roof edge, toward the low parapet, separating them from 43 stories of air. Then maybe I should take something you care about. Henry lunged, not elegant or cinematic. Desperate action trying to salvage a miscalculation through speed. He closed the distance in 3 strides, reaching for Clinton's knife arm. Clinton tried to turn, hampered by Alexandra's weight and the wind. Henry's training took over old instincts from firefighter rescue. He hooked Clinton's wrist with his left hand, twisted hard, forcing the fingers open. The knife clattered to the roof. With his right hand, Henry grabbed Clinton's shoulder, pulled down and around, using the man's momentum to bring him to the ground. Below, the helicopter camera captured everything. The next morning, Astrid delivered the evidence to the district attorney. Clinton was arrested on 6 charges, including attempted manslaughter and corporate fraud. George, implicated in the cost-cutting that had enabled the vulnerability, resigned. The board met in emergency session. Alexandra stood before them, her face drawn but clear. I've failed you. I prioritized growth over safety. I dismissed concerns because they were inconvenient. That ends today. I'm establishing a safety operations fund, $20 million, with independent oversight. And I'm appointing a new director of operational safety who will have veto power over any decision that compromises employee welfare. Who? A board member asked. Henry. Alexandra gestured to where he stood, uncomfortable in borrowed business clothes. A man who proved that integrity matters more than protocol. And I'm implementing full data transparency. Every safety audit, every maintenance log, every incident report will be published quarterly. No more hiding behind proprietary walls. The market will punish us, someone objected. Maybe, but we'll deserve their trust, and that's worth more than my pride. The board voted. It passed, narrowly. Outside, Vivian organized a press conference. Journalists packed the lobby. Alexandra stepped to the microphone. Behind her stood Henry, Carter, and Astrid. 2 nights ago, someone tried to kill me, Alexandra began. They failed, but in the process, they exposed something worse than one man's greed. They exposed my own arrogance. I built this company believing that control equaled success. I was wrong. Real leadership means accountability. It means listening to people I'd dismissed. It means putting safety before profit and truth before image. She detailed Clinton's actions, the investigation, the systemic failures. She announced the safety fund, Henry's appointment, and the transparency initiative. The questions came fast and hard. She answered them all. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, Henry found her in the empty conference room. She was staring out at the city, her reflection ghostly in the glass. You didn't have to do all that, Henry said quietly. Yes, I did. She turned. You saved my life. Twice. Once from the fire. Once from becoming someone I couldn't respect. You saved yourself. I just opened a door. Then I'm grateful for doors. She smiled, tentative. I need to ask you something. The director position. It comes with a condition. You have full authority to shut down any operation you deem unsafe. You can overrule me. Can you work with that? Henry considered. Only if I can set my own hours. Leo needs me. Done. And one more thing. I'd like to come to his school science fair next week, if that's okay. Henry's expression softened. He'd like that. The following week, Alexandra stood in an elementary school gymnasium surrounded by poster boards and baking soda volcanoes. Leo's smoke detector sat on a table, wires and sensors neatly labeled. Other parents gave her curious looks, the CEO in a pantsuit among teachers and families. She felt profoundly out of place. Leo appeared at her elbow. Miss Alexandra, want to see how it works? Yes. Please. He walked her through the design, explaining particle diffusion and thermal gradients with the unself-conscious enthusiasm of a child who loved learning. Alexandra found herself listening, really listening, in a way she had not done in years. When he finished, she said, "This is brilliant. Have you thought about what you want to study when you grow up?" "I want to keep people safe, like my dad." Alexandra's throat tightened. That's a very good goal. Henry joined them, 2 cups of weak coffee in hand. He offered her one. They stood together, watching Leo demonstrate his project to a group of classmates. After a moment, Henry spoke. He made a sign for the new safety office. Wants to donate it. What does it say? Every door opens to light if someone's brave enough to turn the handle. Alexandra smiled, out of the mouths of 8-year-olds. He's a smart kid. So's his father. The months that followed were not easy. The market reacted poorly to the transparency reports. The stock price dipped. But investors who cared about long-term stability began to buy in. The safety protocols Henry implemented became an industry model. Reporters who had sharpened their knives for a scandal found themselves covering a genuine reform instead. Irene, the investigative journalist who had first received the anonymous tip about falsified safety records, wrote a feature that shifted public opinion. A year later, Alexandra stood in the renovated building lobby. The new safety system was fully operational. Every elevator had triple redundancy on alarms. Every floor had clear egress maps designed by Henry's team. And mounted near the main entrance, a small bronze plaque bore Leo's words. Henry walked up beside her, adjusting his tie. He wore a suit now, though he had never gotten comfortable in it. Ready for the anniversary interview? As ready as I'll ever be. Alexandra glanced at him. You? Vivian's been coaching me. Apparently I'm too blunt for television. You're perfect for television. You're honest. They walked together toward the conference room where cameras waited. Outside, the city moved in its endless rhythm. 43 stories above, the executives who now reported to Alexandra worked under new rules. 19 stories below, in a renovated security office that doubled as the safety operations headquarters, Leo's science project sat on a shelf, a reminder, a promise. Alexandra had learned, slowly and painfully, that power was not control. It was responsibility. It was the willingness to admit error. It was opening doors instead of locking them. And sometimes, it was letting a quiet man with a son and a code of honor show you what integrity looked like. She had been saved by fire, judged by water, and rebuilt by truth. That was enough. That, finally, was enough. The cameras began to roll.